640SX built, running, lively, back on the street. Let's go, baby. Woo! Welcome back to another episode of Terry Thornberry Performance, baby. So on this episode, we are in crunch time because we got to get Johnny's S13 Sylvia back up on the road and in front of his shop, nice and being presented on his standards on how he wants it. So we're doing the last little final checks and button up, but we had a really busy week. And I'm gonna show you guys why. Let me go get it. So we got Johnny's motor all built up and ready for boost, baby. So when we go ahead and boost these KAs, we make sure that when you guys are giving it its beans and on high horsepower, the motor can withstand the boost pressure and the beating that it's giving. So with that being said, we have to make sure that the complete bottom end is completely ready for that. So we have to make sure that the bearings are good to go. The crank is also polished and ready to go. We have to make sure that the piston rings are gapped to a certain spec to withstand the boost pressure and the heat inside the block. We also have to make sure that we put an MLS head gasket on it because a Fel-Pro, a stock OEM head gasket, will not last at all. Not only that, we put a hot cam on the head as well to get a little bit more flow in and out the motor, just so the boost pressures and everything like that are perfect. So just to keep the temperatures down, because it's going to be dailied and everything like that, we went with the cast iron T3 manifold with a T3 top mount turbo as well on an external wastegate that we're going to be pushing at 12 psi. And if he wants to go up a little bit more, we'll have a boost controller on the side so we can set it up to around 15 psi. So moving on from the motor side, now we jump on to the car side. So Hernan at Black House Fabrication went ahead and did this full 4-point roll cage for Johnny, and we kept it real clean, real simple, just so we can keep all the interior intact in its OEM location, just so it gives that car that wow look, you know what I mean? So we got the rear seats all in, the plastics, all the panels all in, everything's all in. The only thing that we're waiting on is just the carpet from Johnny as well, because he actually got it all steam cleaned, and I believe he painted it black as well. So we're getting that back from him either today or tomorrow, and then all that will be thrown in. But not only that, we did a full wire tuck on this chassis, so you will not see any wiring of the engine bay harness inside the engine bay at all. You'll just see the motor and all the pizzazz, baby. So what we do on our harness tucks is we relocate the whole harness inside the chassis and accessible for you guys to get it. So if you guys ever blow a fuse, relay, whatever, if you guys need to get to all that stuff, it's all accessible right behind the glove box. So that's super cool. Not only that, but we got some coilovers for this thing as well to match the fitment for the wheels that we got for the car. So we need to make sure that the fitment's on point with the fenders, with the rims, with everything. So we're gonna be throwing the coilovers on this thing as well. All right, so I did enough talking, letting you guys know what we need to get done on this car. But like I said, it's crunch time. So let's get cracking, baby. So I gave old boy Johnny a call. Told him he needs a clutch. He said, all right, let's get one. So went ahead, went with ACT. We didn't go with the Light and Flywheel just because Light and Flywheel is aluminum, or the expensive brand chromoly. But when you're putting on high horsepower and high boost, you want to make sure that the flywheel can withstand the heat and the pressure. Because if it's not, your clutch is going to slip, and even though you got high horsepower, you're not going to go nowhere. So with that being said, a little tech tip: if you guys get these brand new from the manufacturer, they always leave a little bit of oil on the flywheel and the pressure plate, just so it doesn't rust over time it's sitting or it being shipped to your house. So if you guys are installing this yourselves at home, make sure, like I said, this is gonna be your best friend. So when you're installing each part besides the clutch disc, make sure you throw some brake cleaner on a rag and you just wipe down the flywheel. So here it is. This is the clutch and pressure plate he went with. 6-puck, ridged, unsprung. So it's gonna be able to take all of the boost pressure and all of the horsepower that he wants. It's gonna feel a lot aggressive just because it's unsprung. The springs actually take a little bit of the dampening from the clutch. So when you let off the clutch pedal, the springs actually take some of the pulse, some of the dampening of when the pressure plate hits the clutch disc. In this case, like I said, you don't see any springs, so it's just gonna be on, ready to go. Super aggressive. Then we went ahead and got this pressure plate, the NX1 HDR6, rated for 450 horsepower. He's going for 300, so it's definitely going to be good. So should withstand. So even though it may look clean, it may look good, but look how black it is. So, and it's not bad. It's not anything that, you know, to worry about. If you don't do this, then it is definitely something to worry about. But it's only to prevent rust. Because obviously once rust gets on the particles, it's like the surface is uneven because rust is now on top of the surface, eating away at that. So we just want to make sure that the parts, when it gets to the consumer, that they're in great condition. So they make sure that all they do is just put a little bit of oil to prevent that. So we just have to make sure that there's no oil or anything like that, so the contact surfaces are 100% dry and good to go. All right, so now the splines are lubricated and it's good to go. So now that the input shaft, because basically this is the transmission and it's now sliding into the transmission, it's gonna slide in good to go. Another tech tip on when you're installing a clutch disc, it has two sides, a flywheel side and a pressure plate side. If you flip the clutch disc, guess what? When you install the transmission, when you go to start the car, it's already automatically gonna be in gear. Why? Because the springs or the input of the actual clutch disc is now flipped and reversed, so the clutch can't ever disengage. So it's always going to be in gear, or it's always going to be actually, the clutch is always going to be engaged. So even if your clutch is down all the way, when you go to start it, it's gonna leap forward.
So now the pressure plate is all torqued down to spec. We always torque these down to 42 foot-pounds of torque, just so we know that the pressure plate is torqued down to the flywheel and it's giving a sufficient amount of pressure onto the disc, so there's no slippage onto the flywheel from the disc. So we should be good to go on that end. Now I just gotta double check. This just slides in and out. Perfect. So this is basically a really good tool to have, because this is basically the input shaft of the transmission. So instead of trying to fight the transmission and trying to see if it lines up perfectly, they created this tool so you can just throw it in, lines up perfectly. So now it's a lot easier to install the transmission. Now I can just get this stationary, get the transmission, make sure the alignment shaft goes inside the hole, and install the transmission. Just like that, throttle bearing is removed because the ACT clutch kit came with the new throttle bearing, baby. So installing this bearing, throttle bearing, it has to be pressed on. It can't be hammered on. The reason why is because there's bearings inside here. So if you hammer it on, the bearings are definitely gonna be damaged and worn, and they're not gonna be happy. So when you go to put pressure onto the clutch and to the flywheel, it's gonna squeal, and you don't want that, obviously. So we gotta make sure that it's put on correctly, so that we don't have anything damaged and anything squealing. Want to make sure everything is nice, smooth, and good to go. Well, all right. So we got the new clutch, the flywheel, the pressure plate, throttle bearing, everything is installed. The motor is ready to go, but unfortunately, we gotta cut this video a little short. And yes, I know you guys can't see the full build process, but it's okay. Eventually, we'll be able to get Jonah here throughout the whole week, and you guys will be able to see the whole build process on how we do things here at Terry Thornberry Performance. But I hope you guys keep liking and subscribing to our channel and to our videos, and I hope you guys are still being entertained by the content we are giving you guys. But we definitely see the support and we feel the support, and I definitely want to thank you guys and give you guys a shout out. But on the next episode, next week, you'll definitely be seeing this old girl inside that chassis, wire tucked, running and driving, and you'll possibly be able to see Johnny's face on when he gets to see and drive his old girl, because he hasn't driven this thing in over 2 years. So now when he gets into that driver's seat, he's gonna feel some boost and a lot more solid chassis than he has ever driven. So stay tuned and be ready for the next video. Woo! Woo!